views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Hola everyone, welcome to Open BxRx Remote, brought to you from my living workspace, Chari Executive Suite. I'm Rina Valentin, your host of Café con Leche every Friday. Here's what's coming up in today's show. Leading things off, we'll discuss the ongoing impact COVID-19 is having on the restaurant industry when we speak to NYC Hospitality Alliance Executive Director Andrew Ridgey. After that, we'll speak to author Rivera Colón about his new book, Living Between Cultures, From Borinquen to Hollywood. Then we'll hear from artisan and costume designer Héctor Cotza about the different ways he used his creativity to capture his culture during the pandemic. And later on in the show, Bobby C brings us an up-to-date with the latest headlines in the world of sports. And last but not least, this week's Open Artist Spotlight shines on trumpeter Eganam Segbefia, and we'll learn about his quarantine living room concerts. And plus, he's going to perform a concert Etude for us at the end of the show. So, sit back y prepárate. All this and more is headed your way, because now we are officially open. Welcome to Open. I'm Rina Valentin, your host of Café con Leche for the next hour, encouraging you to get social with us online, that is. Tweet us and follow us on Instagram at BronxNet TV, and like us on Facebook at Open BronxNet Television. And of course, while you're there, you can find me on Twitter, FB, Instagram, Insta Stories, and LinkedIn at Rina Valentin. So COVID-19 has massively impacted all of us, and especially the restaurant industry. According to the recent audit, 200,000 industry jobs were lost. And although New York City just reopened indoor dining at 25% capacity, many concerns are underway as 9 districts may have to close non-essential businesses due to a recent spike of COVID cases. And well, many restaurants, they can afford, they're not going to survive if they shut down again. So joining us to tell us more, we welcome New York City Hospitality Alliance Executive Director Andrew Ridgey. Hello.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for being with us, and thank you for your service in trying to serve, what I consider to be the heartbeat of New York City.
I agree with you. I mean, I always say restaurants are not only vital to the economic footprint of the city, but the social fabric. I mean, it doesn't matter where you're from, what your background is, you connect to food and socializing. And we really need to help support these small businesses because frankly, I don't know how the city of New York recovers unless our restaurants and our nightlife and our culture are at the core of that recovery.
So walk us through what's going on right now, because I myself have explored and been really, it's been refreshing to be able to go and dine, at least outdoors. And now, obviously, a lot of the restaurants have to implement outdoor heaters. And I understand that the 25% indoor capacity has now been established. However, there's a new spike that occurred. I believe it's 9 districts. There was a debate going back and forth as to whether those districts were going to be completely closed, and I'm referring to the restaurants. I know that the schools and certain other businesses are. So just walk us through what the conversation is from your perspective.
Yeah, well, thanks for setting that up. You know, it's been so difficult and really confusing and challenging for so many people. So on September 30th, restaurants in New York City began operating indoors at 25% occupancy. Mind you, the rest of the state had been open since about June at a 50% indoor occupancy, as we thankfully continue to see the infection rate go down. But there have been some key areas throughout the city and throughout the state where we've seen the infection rate increase. So Mayor de Blasio came out and said he wanted to shut down businesses in a whole bunch of different zip codes. That was followed the day after by Governor Cuomo saying that that's not the right approach. We need to be more surgical and not just close down zip codes, but really look at areas where the infection rate spiked and do something more surgical where we shut down particular areas or limit operations. Then Mayor de Blasio came back and seemed to imply that he wanted to move forward with his initial proposal of just shutting all this stuff down. And then Governor Cuomo finally came out with a proposal saying, instead of looking at these 9 zip codes, we are going to look at these areas in Brooklyn and Queens where we've seen the infection rate and have 3 different types of zones. And each zone, different types of businesses have to limit their operation. So the red zone, which is the highest infection rate, restaurants have to stop indoor and outdoor dining. The second zones outside that area have to stop indoor dining. Then the final zones, they can keep indoor dining and outdoor dining, but they have to reduce their table capacity to no more than 4 people at a table. And we're still trying to work through all the details, and it's going to take effect by the end of, very soon.
So this is all very concerning, obviously, as flu season approaches, which I understand your point of opening towards the summer versus now opening at this capacity while flu season is about to hit us, right? Aside from that, I'm sure a lot of restaurants have to make a lot of investments with the outdoor heaters so that they can continue serving. And I understand that there is a Restaurants Act that is in discussions and in development, but it hasn't been approved yet. So you want to talk a little bit about that and what that looks like for anybody who may potentially be seeking additional funds? Well, actually, probably everyone is seeking additional funding.
Sure. So, the organization I run, the New York City Hospitality Alliance, was a big advocate for outdoor dining. And it's been incredibly important in transforming the city streetscape, frankly, and also providing a lifeline to many of these small businesses and jobs. But only about 40% of restaurants in the 5 boroughs are participating in outdoor dining. And as it gets cold, you have the outdoor heating issue, which costs money. And even with heating, are people going to want to sit out in the cold? So while it's an important policy, very, very important, it's going to be made permanent, we hope, it's not going to save the restaurant industry. We really need the federal government to act. And the House of Representatives just passed a new HEROES Act, which includes something called the Restaurants Act, which is a $120 billion grant fund that would give these cash injections to restaurants to afford rent, utilities, payroll, vendors, and all these expenses that they have piling up that they need in order to survive. Because these aren't big businesses with cash reserves. These are like everyday New Yorkers. Many of them are using their personal savings to try to keep their restaurants open and keep some New Yorkers employed. So without passing that, we're going to see an even more dire situation of businesses closing.
So becoming a member of the New York City Hospitality Alliance, is that part of the process in possibly becoming eligible for these grants? Walk us through that really quickly before we go, so that if there's anyone in dire need right now and is unfamiliar with the New York City Hospitality Alliance, just share what those qualifications are.
Yep. So the New York City Hospitality Alliance, we are a not-for-profit trade association that represents restaurants, bars, and nightclubs in the 5 boroughs. We're membership-based, so businesses can join for as little as $1 a day. And that means that we have a team fighting at all levels of government for policies to help you, many of which we've already achieved, like the outdoor dining. But we know there's so much more, like the Restaurant Acts, that needs to get done. So you can go to our website, which is thenycalliance.org, thenycalliance.org, get more information about joining. But we understand the dire fiscal situation. So if people reach out to us, even if they're not a member, we will try to help you. But we urge you, if you can, support us. We're a nonprofit, and like everything else, we need some money to keep on going. If we can get the Restaurants Act passed or any policy passed, The requirements are not that you're a member of the Hospitality Alliance, but we just remind you that, you know, your support helps fuel our advocacy to be able to get the support to restaurants that they need. So we're fighting around the clock. We hope you'll join the Hospitality Alliance. We're small individually, but when we come together with a collective voice, we're power, and our voice must be heard, because New York City is not New York City without our restaurants and without our nightlife.
I am so there with you. Absolutely 100% correct. The restaurants is like the heartbeat of New York City. So thank you for your service, and thank you for fighting a good fight. And I'm really sending out good energy that this Restaurants Act will be passed and we'll be able to save our restaurants so that we have all these fabulous choices to fill our palates.
Well, thank you so much for your support of the industry and having me on.
All right, thank you. Once again, you guys, for more resources on New York City restaurants amid the pandemic, please make sure to visit nycalliance.org. We do have to take a quick break, but when we return, we'll learn about living between cultures. Don't go anywhere.
I'm Bronx Borough President Ruben Diaz Jr., and I'm making sure that the Bronx Count is my priority. That's why I'm urging everyone to fill out the 2020 census. The 2020 census is important because it would allow for the federal government to determine how much money and resources the Bronx is going to need for the next 10 years around healthcare, education, housing, roads, representation, and so many other things. What does it mean exactly? Just imagine if you are organizing a party or an event and you send out 100 invitations, but only 50 people RSVP, and you only prepare for 50 people, and yet 100 people showed up. You're gonna be short of food, seats, tables, chairs. That's why it is important that 100% of us here in the Bronx fill out the 2020 census. It is easy, it is confidential, it doesn't matter whether you're a citizen or undocumented. We need everybody to fill it out. Now let's all get together and make the Bronx count.
Hey everyone, welcome back. In celebration of Hispanic Heritage Month, today we are highlighting Puerto Rican native author Luis Alberto Rivera Colón. He recently wrote a new memoir entitled Living Between Cultures from Borinquen to Hollywood, a story detailing his humbling beginnings from Puerto Rico to the States in pursuit to achieve the American dream. And he's here to tell us more about this book. Welcome, author Luis Alberto Rivera Colón.
Hi, Rina. Good to see you again.
It's so good to see you. Could you use any more names? You have to use all of your names?
Well, actually, because when I go to Puerto Rico, everything changes. It's not Luis Rivera anymore. It's Luis Alberto Rivera Colón. So in homage to them, I put my whole name in there. But you notice it's LA because it couldn't fit on the cover. So we had to shorten it a little.
But I like that you used LA because it's kind of clever considering that the story is from Borinquen to Hollywood. So let's talk about this book in the making, why you've chosen to write this book now at this time of your life.
Actually, I've been working on it for years, and it started out because I wanted to give my kids a little sense of history, a little bit of legacy as to what their grandparents went through, what I went through, coming and migrating from Puerto Rico to the States. And the typical immigrants kind of hard work situation and some of the challenges and successes that we had. And so I had laid it aside for years and didn't get back to it. And all of a sudden, my wife, Norma, Norma, who, by the way, sends you best wishes, she Louis, when are you going to finish that book? And I said, well, it's really not a book for the public, it's for the kids. And she says, you need to take this COVID time since we've been locked away to finish it. So I did. I shared it with some friends and they told me, wow, Louis, you need to publish this thing because it helps to educate the public as to the culture of Puerto Rico, the nuances, the foods, the arroz con pollo and all that good stuff and the music. So I finally did publish it. I got the nerve to publish it. And so far, people have been responding really nicely.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to reading it myself. I know it was just recently published, but just to give our viewers a little overview of your trajectory, because the reason you wrote this is because obviously you lived in LA, and I also wanted to share that you were also a newscaster, a producer out there, and also that you did live in New York. So shall we take them from your trip from Puerto Rico to New York and then from New York to LA, because right now you currently reside in Virginia, and I believe you were a council member over there, right?
Well, actually, I'm a commissioner. I'm a commissioner appointed by the mayor and the city council. And it's kind of ironic because, you know, all my life, I fought against discrimination. I fought against racism and everything else. And I came to Virginia, and right away, without my asking, I got a phone call one day and they said, hey, you've just been appointed by the mayor and the city council to this commission. So it's really fantastic that that I'm able to continue to give even at my age.
So that's wonderful. It's wonderful that you're still making a stand and making sure that you are presente for us, despite of whatever state you reside in. However, I jumped fast forward to Virginia, but can you take us on a really quick trip from what I guess your experiences were, which is what the book is about, having come from Puerto Rico to living in the Bronx to then moving to LA?
Yes, absolutely. Well, as you know, my father was a cane cutter, sugar cane cutter, and so was my grandfather before him. And that's how they made their living. They came to the States. They tried their best to make it, if you will. And of all of the children, I was fortunate enough to get a college education. And without any experience and without any courses in communication or broadcasting, I heard that there was a job opening available with an NBC affiliate in Connecticut, actually Hartford, Connecticut. And so I went, talked to them, and I was able to sell my way into that job. About almost 3 years later, I got a phone call from, let's say, a major network, television network, that asked me if I could join them. And they wanted to send me to Hollywood, to their Hollywood studio. There I worked, I got to know a lot of the Mexican community, Mexican-American community, and so on. And I did my thing. And even in those days, it was rough because every time I said Luis Rivera, rolling my R's, I'd get a letter from the Ku Klux Klan, or somebody in the studio would scream and say, hey, that's for the Spanish stations. You don't speak Spanish here. And then when I interviewed people, I interviewed them in Spanish if they were Spanish speaking. I translated, and all hell would break loose with that. But in any case, while I was going through all that, I met the family of a young man, Freddie Prinz, who had a show, Chico and the Man, at that time, and it was a #1 hit. And he also made a motion picture, and he had all kinds of performances in Vegas and everything. And I found out through his parents that he was having a hard time trying to make the transition from the Bronx. He lived in the Bronx also. And so I understood what he was going through, because the pressures, when you get to that level, are so huge that if you're a young person, it's very hard to deal with it and cope with it.
Right. I know. I experienced Hollywood, so I can relate to the displacement, the scarcity of us, and also the unidentifiable situation in being different, because for some reason, I would imagine when you were out there, it must have been really, really challenging because they couldn't identify what you were.
Right. Absolutely. I was the only Puerto Rican on the air down there in LA, and it was crazy. But the beauty of it was that the minorities could tell that I was trying to relate to them. And I was afforded many experiences, from the Mexican-American community to the Native American community to the Black community. And so I was very grateful for that. But the thing that drove me crazy was that when you get into a corporate situation, like that. You don't call the shots. Somebody else is calling them for you. And it became very difficult because I'm a kind of person that loves people and I love my heritage. I want to help people. I'm a good news reporter, not a hardcore or a bad news reporter. And you have to be able to jump when they tell you to jump. And many times I was told to jump and I didn't particularly want to.
Right. It wasn't something that you stood for. And it, you know, I get it in the sense of why you wrote this story and why it's important for you to share it with the next generation. I mean, obviously we're in different times. However, what time capsule are we looking at within the storytelling?
Gosh, you're talking the first half of my life. So you're talking 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and almost to the 80s.
Nice. So it's a time trip from 1940s into the 1980s.
So really, I shared the manuscript with a Puerto Rican author who I have a lot of respect for. And she told me that she loved it because not only did it talk about the culture and so on, but it also was a historical document about the trajectory of Puerto Ricans coming to the States, coming to New York City, etc., which it hasn't been written about. And she said she was so happy she wanted to come down and give me a big hug. And so that to me was a confirmation that I really needed to share it.
Well, we thank you for bringing it here and making us Bronx proud, because your origins are from Puerto Rico, the Bronx, and then California, and now you're in Virginia. I'm happy that we were able to present you to our viewers in the Bronx. I know the book just came out and it's now available on Amazon. And I just want to say thank you for making the time from Virginia. And I also want to acknowledge you for continuing to be a stand for the Latinx community, wherever you are. Thank you.
Thank you, Rena, and I really appreciate you. You know, I'm one of your biggest fans. I've been following you over the internet, and I love what you've become as a woman of power and not afraid to let the world know that we have a great heritage.
Gracias. Gracias. All right, show me your book. Let's see your book.
Oh, okay. Well, this is an author's copy, but I don't know if you can see it that well, but I wanted to pay honor to my mom, and that's her back there with me and my little brother who passed away, and I mentioned that in the book. But
awesome.
Yeah, she was an amazing woman. She was
Awesome. I just wanted to make sure that everybody saw the cover. All right. So thanks again for being with us.
Hey, blessings always.
Igualmente. And you guys, once again, Living Between Cultures from Borinquen to Hollywood is now available on Amazon.com. Make sure to get your copy. It's going to be a classic. We have to take a quick break, but when we return, we'll hear from another Latinx creative. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Open. Our next guest is a New Yorican who always found creativity through all aspects of his life since a young age. And being an Army veteran diagnosed with bipolar depression and PTSD, he found that the arts have always been part of his healing journey. During the pandemic, he was able to create an Artisan line focusing on the pride and culture of Puerto Rican native roots. And joining us to tell us more, we welcome visual artist Héctor Cotza.
Hi, Rena. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for being here with us. You know, I want to open up by just acknowledging you first for serving our country and by saying thank you.
Thank you so much, Rena.
And secondly, for just being public about the fact that you've been diagnosed with bipolar depression and PTSD, right? Because within our cultura, there's a stigma around identifying those type of diagnoses and keeping it private. However, I'm opening up with that because I can't imagine what it's been like for you these past couple of months dealing with this crisis that we're all enduring.
Yeah, well, Rena, I'm glad that you brought up the stigma because it was something that I was always scared to talk about it. But being able to talk about it, it's make it easier for me. And I have found a lot of people who have suffered the same issues that I suffer, and that we've been able to help each other. During this COVID, I was very scared. There was a lot of thinking going in my head. Gladly, I did not lose my job and I'm working from home. But then nighttime would come and I'm still here in a room where I've been working all day. So I decided I needed to do something so that my mind is not thinking of anything else. You know, I have PTSD, I'm bipolar, and I'm a very, very happy person and very creative. So I decided that why not start a line that expresses my love for Puerto Rico, you know, because I do love my island. I create a lot of projects, but this is the first time that I decided to just go and I'm making one-of-a-kind pieces, just one of each piece. And it's just inspired by my imagination. And I stop thinking about COVID and I just get myself out there and make believe that I'm in the island. And I think of my roots and I think of my parents who are still there. And that just, I create some masterpieces that sometimes I even impress myself. I would love to meet them all.
You know, it's so lovely just to hear you share in that way, because at least I can get the sense that there's the child in you gets to live through this work that you're doing, and obviously it's your form of therapy. And what I didn't share with other people is that, with our viewers, I should say, is that, you know, you've been known to make some like fierce drag costume creations, and that you've been noted by the New York Times, Out Magazine, Telemundo. So you've been at this for a while now, with as far as like capitalizing on your creativity, right? However, during this particular time, you've chosen to take this route and create this artisan style pieces. And so it seems to me that you're creating a series. So I'm curious to know how many you already have made. And I also noticed in our images that there's different layers within the portraits. I mean, we're looking at them behind you. However, I don't think we can really see the dimensions that go into the artwork that you're doing.
Well, if you would like, I could take one and show it to you.
Oh yeah, sure, we'd love that.
So we're gonna start with this one. This one is called La Puerta de la Felicidad, the door of happiness. It's a door that's in Puerto Rico in San Juan, and it's become a very, very tourist area that people go to. And it was just somebody painted the flag on a door, and now it's become like iconic, right? As you can see, it's all made of wood. Everything is made by wood. It's made handmade. I do the paintings. I learned how to do a little bit of painting on YouTube because I didn't know how to paint. So I just said, let me learn on YouTube. Give it a little bit more of depth. So if you can see, there's 3 layers here. There's you see the back layer with the trim. Then you have where I make the piece, and then you see the 3D, I don't know if you can see that right there. Okay, and then I cover it very beautifully in the back with my little label. I mean, it's done very, very professionally because it takes a lot of work. Sometimes I spend 8-9 hours on a project, but when I'm finished, there's so much love put to it. I don't like people asking me to make a specific piece because then the love and the creativity doesn't show. So that's what makes this unique.
That's beautiful. And thank you for sharing all the love that goes into it. We definitely get it. And so how many have you made?
I have made now, believe it or not, 45 in the last.
45?
Yeah, I actually started like 3 months ago. Yeah.
Wow.
I just wanted to share with you, as a little kid, I've always been very creative. And I got a grant when I was 12 years old to go to the Institute of Arts and Music in Puerto Rico. And unfortunately, because of our culture, my father thought that that's not something that was going to be good for me. So I was always talented. So I just want to ask people, if you're talented at creativity, you don't even have to go to school. Go ahead and do it. Like, I have had so much fun doing these things, doing the costume, I do furniture, I bake cakes. I mean, I just let all my creativity come out. And I think it's very important during this time for people to find something to do, something that they love. And listen, I wasn't thinking of selling them. It's just that I made so much that I have to get rid of them because it's in my apartment.
I'm laughing because I happen to be an art collector myself, and I have dealt with a few artists who are very attached to certain things and they won't sell it. So I get it. When you become attached to your work, it's like birthing all kinds of children. And it's funny that you were saying that you just have too many now. Now you need people to adopt them. You're like, that's it. You're on your own now.
I want to keep this. And they're like, oh, I want that one. I'm like, oh, okay.
So tell us, so how can people go about, I guess, purchasing your work?
Okay, well, since I'm just starting, I just opened a store in Etsy because I didn't know how to go about this. And my shop.
When you say you're just starting to sell them, because we just shared with everybody there's 45 pieces. I don't know if they're all up for sale, but okay, so you opened up your shop in Etsy.
Yes, I'm so sorry. I'm just starting. And I put them up like 3 days ago. I opened up a shop on Etsy and I put them up, and I've already sold 4 like in 2 days. And I was like, wow, I didn't realize that this, and now the people who have purchased from me take a moment. They're like, oh my God, Hector, this in person is totally like different what you see online. So I just want people to realize that they love it. The shop is at Etsy.com and it's under Rico Sante Designs. And
so what are the dimensions before we go?
Well, we have different dimensions, Rena. Like this, for example, I believe it's a 10 by 14, but I have some, like you see back here, I believe that was 22 by 18. I mean, this one is really, really intricate. I don't know if you can see it. So they're all different sizes. It all depends. Sometimes it all depends how much wood I have left.
You're funny. Oh gosh. Oh my gosh. Well, I'm so happy that we were able to share this with our viewers, and thank you for putting a smile on my face. This was a lovely segment, and congratulations on birthing 45 art pieces. Bravo. And also, once again, before we go, what's the Etsy address? It's etsy.com/shops/Rico Sante Designs. Beautiful. And of course, you can always find his work on Instagram, which is Rico Sante Designs.
Correct.
Bueno, gracias for being with us. You guys don't go anywhere. Bobby C's Weekly Sports Roundup is coming up next.
I would love to give you one of these pieces. So I will send it to you, okay?
Yay!
All my love. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, I can't. Ay, Dios mío, no, you're going to make me. You don't understand. You don't understand. I'm like, what? You're going to give me one of your children and your energy is going to be in my space?
Yeah.
Ay, Dios mío.
This week on the show, we sit down with New York Times bestselling author Jeff Pearlman. But first, let's take a look at the state of football here at the Big Apple. Week 4 of the NFL season kicked off at MetLife Stadium last Thursday night as the Jets hosted the banged-up Broncos. Denver easily scored on Gangrene during a short week, cruising to a 37-28 win. Head coach Adam Gase expressed his frustration in the postgame.
We're working to get this thing right. I mean, I'm not happy about this. I mean, I know we can play way better than this. I know we can not beat ourselves and do the things we're doing.
The Giants also looked again in the win column for the first time, traveling to L.A. to take on the Rams on Sunday. The defense stepped up for Big Blue, holding Rams quarterback Jared Goff to just 200 passing yards. But the offense couldn't get going in a 17-9 Rams victory. Still, Giants head coach Joe Judge looked to the positives.
I'm proud of the way they fought. They're an improved team from last week. I'm proud of the way they worked last week. I'm proud of the improvement they made. We got to keep pushing on and making strides going forward. Obviously, we're going to a tough stretch right now with the division, so we can't afford to make these mistakes. Obviously, we're anxious already to get back on the grass and start working.
Through 4 weeks, the Giants and Jets are a combined 0-8 to start 2020. When the first win comes for either team remains the big question. This past week, we caught up with New York Times bestselling author Jeff Pearlman for a discussion on his career as a writer. Here now is part 1 of that interview. Real honor this morning to have New York Times bestselling author Jeff Pearlman with us. Jeff, how's it going?
It's another crazy day in America, isn't it?
It definitely is. I actually saw you posting some about, of course, the Trumps getting COVID on your blog. I think 2020 can't get any more bizarre.
I feel like we're living inside WrestleMania. Like we're living inside the script room, the writer's room for like WWE. And they're always like, no, that's not enough. We need more. We need bigger. We need bolder. Like we need fireworks. That's not enough. We need strippers. We need fireworks with strippers. And it's like every day there's like this, someone in a spaceship in a satellite above Earth is writing these scripts and they're just sending them down at this rapid pace. And it's just impossible to keep up.
100%. I mean, all kidding aside, too, I mean, I think most of the time when we've had conversations about coronavirus and the beginning of the year, I think so much of it was tied to that first tragic story of Kobe Bryant's passing, which ironically, the New York Times, you know, on that front page that day had a very small story about COVID-19, but the big story was the tragic passing of Kobe Bryant.
Feels like 20 years ago. If you think about it, if you really think about it, Kobe dies and you think, this is going to be this has to be one of the great tragedies of this year. And I'm not saying it's not, but then you have in no particular order, the Australian fires, the California fires, or the West Coast fires, COVID, obviously, a whole slew of scandals. Then you have just people, Ruth Bader Ginsburg dies, Chadwick Boseman dies, John Thompson dies, Tom Seaver dies. I mean, just like, I've never experienced a year like this ever.
Definitely a year for the history books. And then speaking of books too, Jeff, I mean, I wanted to have you on the show today, not only because you are arguably my favorite sports writer ever. Loved reading you in ESPN and Sports Illustrated, Newsday. We were talking about even some of your other publications that you've done, starting on the smaller side. But right now, of course, introduced as best-selling author because you've got a new book, and not your first time actually writing about the LA Lakers, but this one called Three Ring Circus. Kobe, Shaq, Phil, and the crazy years of the Lakers dynasty, focuses on that three-peat and actually the demise of the dynasty.
Mm-hmm. It's funny. I was just thinking how you're a New Yorker, I'm a New Yorker. It would have made my life a lot easier had the Knicks been interesting all these years, and I could have written, books about the Knicks and would have felt very home. But they're not. Think about it. The Lakers, they always have these huge characters. They always have this huge presence. They're really, really good. They're well run, and the chance to write about Shaq, Kobe, and Phil. I mean, they're all together under one tent at the same time. It's three iconic figures in the same boat, so it's just made for a really good book to write.
One of my favorite books that you wrote is definitely The Bad Guys Won. I'm not a Met fan, but that was such a great read about that '86 Mets championship team. And again, as I mentioned before, you've written about the Lakers before, having a chance to chronicle about those years with Pat Riley and Magic and Kareem. Which was better for you to write about? I mean, have you enjoyed more about writing about those Shaq and Kobe years or the Magic, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, James Worthy dynasty from the 80s?
I really enjoyed them both. Actually, you mentioned The Bad Guys Won. That was my first book I ever wrote. And, I was 14 years old that season, 1986. If you really want to talk about what brought me the absolute most joy as far as a writer, was diving back into my childhood. And you're a kid and you're sitting in front of the TV wearing a glove, pretending you're Rafael Santana diving in the short. And then fast forward 20 years and you're sitting with Rafael Santana talking about being a kid and doing that. So as far as pure nostalgia, there'll probably never be a book for me quite as powerful as The Bad Guys Won. I loved the Showtime Lakers. Even as a kid, I loved the Showtime Lakers. I remember being a kid in New York and watching like Lakers Celtics, and they would zoom in on the forum and you'd see the palm trees and the Laker girls, and there's something always magical about that era. So I'm big into nostalgia, things that remind me of my childhood.
Well, this is the 9th book for you, so I mean, you've definitely been able to tackle some great ones, writing about, Roger Clemens or the Dallas Cowboys. And I think definitely interesting to talk about, of course, Kobe and Shaq these days. Even this morning and kind of prepping for this interview, I was thinking to myself as someone that I'm 40 now. I hate to tell that to people, but I got a chance to see, of course, Shaq and Kobe. But I was thinking about great tandems in NBA history. So to me, like in my lifetime, with my own eyes, I would probably go with, I'm probably going one of these three. I'm either going Jordan and Pippen, maybe Magic and Kareem, or Shaq and Kobe. I would probably say Jordan and Pippen might have to be number one. And this is coming from a Knicks fan, but at the same time, I think you can make a serious case that Shaq and Kobe could very well be either second or at the very top.
Wait, who was the other one you had? The Jordan Pippen?
Magic and Kareem. Magic and Kareem.
So I think the interesting, those are all great. You might be able eventually to add in, if you're just going duos, Clay and Steph at some point, if you think about the winning they've had. I think it's interesting that of all those duos, they all played really well with each other in a way, except for Shaq and Kobe. Like, I think Shaq and Kobe played well with each other because they were both supremely good basketball players. Like, I don't think, if you look, generally speaking, it's not like Shaq and Kobe were feeding off of each other all the time. Kobe created his own shot. Shaq was his own force down low. So I think like Pippen and Jordan were, really cohesive with each other. And Magic, when he showed with the Lakers, he knew, I'm getting the ball to Kareem. I'm getting the ball to Kareem. And if you watch Klay Thompson and Steph Curry, they're like two magnets on the court, the way they space with each other and always. So I think in a way, what Shaq and Kobe had was just, number one, they played different positions. And number two, just the sheer athletic talent and the physicality they had made them really unique. But I don't think they were great because of each other. I think they were great individuals who were put together on the court and just were better than anyone else had.
What do you love most about this book? I mean, obviously, we want to encourage some of the fans at home to pick it up and purchase it. But if you can tease a little bit about some of the stories inside the book, it would be great.
Oh, I mean, my favorite, one of my favorite people I've ever written about is in this book, and it's not Shaq, Kobe, or Phil. It's one-year Laker J.R. Ryder, who was on the Lakers in 2000, 2001. Just the most erratic but joyful player I've written about. J.R. Ryder missed 3 days of practice because his car broke down, but he only lived 300 yards from the practice facility, which makes no sense whatsoever. J.R. Ryder was detained by customs officials in Canada because they thought he had drugs on him, but he smoked so much marijuana, his tracksuit just reeked of marijuana, so he actually had no drugs on him, but the dogs were going crazy barking at him because they thought he did. J.R. Ryder once missed a shoot around and had the front desk clerk at the hotel write a note for him that he could give to Phil Jackson, explaining that the hotel had failed to give him a proper wake-up call. So he shows up at practice with a note: "Dear Coach Jackson, my name is Tim. I'm the front desk clerk at the Hyatt, and JR was late because we didn't give him a wake-up call." Like, he's the best character ever. So if you don't care about Shaq and if you care about them, this book will make you very happy. And if you don't, you can always read about J.R. Ryder, who's the best character who's ever lived.
That was part one of our interview with best-selling author Jeff Pearlman. Tune in Monday for part two.
welcome back. Our last guest is a Ghanaian American from the Bronx who got his humble start performing at the Grand Central Shuttle train station to then notable venues across New York City, such as the Green Space, Cathedral of St. John the Divine, and Carnegie Hall, and that's just to name a few. He's currently a member of the United Nations Orchestra and also a Broadway musician, functioning in all he does, carrying the intent of his mantra: inspiration without perspiration is hallucination. Joining us to tell us more about himself, we welcome Eganam Ego Segbefia. Hello and welcome.
Hey, how you doing? Thank you so much for having me. I'm really, really excited and humbled to be here.
Well, we're happy to have you. And as I was sharing with you prior to being on air, it is my privilege to be in your presence, learning about you and your humble beginnings. I have the utmost admiration for your journey, and I would love for you to share it with our viewers.
Thank you so much. It is also a privilege for me to be here to share my journey, because my journey is just like a lot of our young African-American brothers and sisters from not only the Bronx, but everywhere, and their journey to finding their voice in America and in the world. And so for my journey, my goal is to have it be serve as an inspiration, so that kids can see and say, if he was able to do that and turn something out of nothing, then I can do the same.
You know, I basically introduced you expressing how you were out there playing on the train, you know, and I mean the shuttles, right?
Yes, definitely, in the shuttle.
But your origins are from Nigeria.
Mm-hmm. I was born in Nigeria. I was there until I was 10 years old. I would always go back between Ghana and Nigeria. I went to school in Nigeria. And when we moved here in February 99, I was 10 years old, and I came and started the 5th grade in the Bronx. So,
and let's talk about your development and how you found the trumpet.
Oh, so when I first came here, I was teased for my English. My English was just like any African growing up in Nigeria. And when I came here, you know, the English was very different. I was teased by my friends, and the marching band class was an elective that was given to, you know, 5th graders, because the school had a big marching band. And so I got in, and once I got in, I realized, you know, I didn't have to talk. I would just put the instrument to my mouth, and you wouldn't hear me talk, but you would hear me, you know, play. And that became my safe haven, because I was able to blend in and be just like everybody else, and I would only be different when I spoke, you know. And so that grew out of, you know, also, you know, there were a lot of different things that were happening. You know, coming here to America, it was a culture shock. You know, I have 9 brothers and sisters, 2 parents, you know, we're figuring this thing out. And through the midst of this, I go to school and I'm being ridiculed. I come back home, there's not really any privacy. So I found music as an outlet, and I would join every after school program just because it gave me a little bit of time just to be myself, just to be able to just, you know, be a kid. And so that just grew into, you know, going into Celia Cruz Barnes High School of Music as, you know, a trumpet player and studying with them. And then when I finished there, I was like, oh, well, I've been doing music for, you know, middle school and high school, might as well, you know, go to college for it. So I went to college for music, and it just continued to grow. And it wasn't until I was getting ready to graduate college, my undergrad, that I realized that, you know, this is my journey. I've already been on this journey. This is something that, you know, that's with me. You know, a lot of people say, oh, I knew right there and then that this is something I was going to do. I didn't know that. You know, I just did it because it allowed me to be free. I was able to express myself. I was able to be a kid. I was able to make mistakes without, you know, people looking at me like, you know, you're supposed to be perfect, as, you know, life tells everybody.
Right.
You know, so it allowed me just to be myself and be free. And that just became part of it. And as I started to get older, not that I'm old.
No, of course not. You're far from. You know,
wiser is the word I'm looking for.
Right, wiser. I like the word wiser. Yes. You're a wordsmith, so good choice of words.
Thank you. So I started to think about things and reflect a lot, because, you know, we use the past to kind of gauge where we want to go in the future. We don't let it dictate, but our experiences help us so that we don't make the same mistakes twice. So I started to realize these things, and as I realized them, I became of age where it became cool to be African, you know, with Afrobeat coming up and being popular music. And so being African became really cool. And so now I play the trumpet, and I've gone this journey and kind of in that same, you know, generation. And people are like, oh, wow, I love your story about, you know, you playing the trumpet and you going through.
You have an amazing story that I hope we were able to share with our viewers somewhat to give them a little idea of who you are, because I don't want this segment to end without sharing with everyone that you offer these quarantine living room concerts.
Yes. So right now I offer living room concerts series today on Instagram and tomorrow on Facebook. It's going to be week 29. I've been doing this for 29 weeks straight since the middle of March, when we were all, you know, forced to come back home. And this was me going and playing to hundreds of thousands of people a day, you know, because I play at Grand Central, so many people go through there. And I was playing 5 days a week, and, you know, I treated it like a normal job because I gave it that respect. And, you know, I'm able to live in New York City comfortably, you know, playing my trumpet as, you know, as freely, and I come and I go.
As your tool. It's your tool. It's your tool of communication. It's your tool to even generate revenue. It's your tool of just self-expression. I get it. I'm feeling you.
So when COVID snapped all of that, I was like, you know what, I need to figure out a way to keep playing, to stay in front of people, you know, to stay relevant, because, you know, when you think about it, out of mind is out of sight. And I was like, you know, I kind of want to keep my same following, my same fan base, my friends, you know, my family who want to see me perform. And this was, I didn't know that it would go this long, but then I didn't also know that I would learn so much about public speaking, about being comfortable in front of the camera, because as musicians, we're taught to play,
right,
but we're not taught to talk. So
got it.
Like when I go back and I watch my old concerts, I'm like, wow, I was stuttering so much. I kept saying, but you know, I appreciate that, because, you know, when life gives you lemons, you're supposed to make lemonade. And
that's it. That's what we're doing now during this particular time. And honestly, all I have to say to you is I want to acknowledge you for the services that you're providing. I'm sure it's serving many, as well as yourself. Before we go, if you could just introduce the piece that you're going to be presenting to our viewers, I would love just a quick introduction. We're going to take a quick break before that.
Sure. So the piece I'm going to be playing is called The Concert Etude by Alexander Godeki. He was born in 1877 and he passed away in 1957. So his music is 19th century, and it's part of the classical standard repertoire for trumpet players as they matriculate from being, you know, aspiring amateurs into professional trumpet players. And I picked up this piece in college, and it's always been a piece that I always come back to, and I'm very happy to play. So I hope you enjoy it. It's fun, it's upbeat, it's got lots of cool stuff, and it's my first go around with editing and Final Cut. So I hope you guys enjoy everything.
Yay! Woo! Thank you. All right, you guys, we got to take a quick break. But when we return, Eganam Ego Segbefia, he's going to perform his piece that he considers rite of passage. So don't go anywhere. Welcome back. Here now to perform Concert Etude by Alexander Godeki. Please welcome Eganam Ego Segbefia. a trumpet blast. For more on Eganam Ego Segbefia, please visit everythingego.com. And to catch one of his quarantine living room concerts, be sure to follow him on Facebook at Eganam Segbefia. That is our show today, mi gente. Thanks to our guests for coming through, and to you, our viewers, for tuning in. If you missed any part of the show, you can check out the recablecast tonight and 24 hours a day at BronxNet.tv. I'm Reina Valentin, and from all of us here at Open, may the universe provide peace, prosperity, y amor, and happy Hispanic Heritage Month. And make sure to wear your mask and do it stylishly.